So I have played fantasy football for about 20 years, and I have failed to find a way to score points without my players actually touching the football. You need touches to score points, right? Well, we preach heavy running back early. So if that's the case, if we're going heavy running back and we're trying to target two studs in the first couple rounds, who are some of those target monster wide receivers that we should be targeting afterwards? Got a few names coming up right now. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. We're talking about a few potential target monsters at the wide receiver position. Now, if you watched a mock draft earlier in the week that I did, I kind of talked about how I prefer to go heavy running back early, right? The running back well runneth dry awfully fast in 2021 because so many teams are taking a committee-style approach. Me, personally, I'm trying to lock up two of those running back studs in the first couple of rounds. Well, if I do that, who are a few potential wide receivers that could see some huge volume and really help give me that balanced lineup with that high ceiling still? How do we get those numbers? Targets, right? We're looking for opportunities, touchdown opportunities, potential reception opportunities. We need some guys that are going to hog the ball on that side of the offense. So I've put together 5 names here in this video, a couple bonus for members only, but I do want to make sure I stress to the people here. Our draft guide drops in just about a month. It's available for pre-order right now on our website, thefantasyheadliners.com. We are stocked full, almost 600 virtual pages of all things fantasy football. If you're looking for one, head over to the website as soon as this video is over. But for now, let's head into the first name, right? And it's no surprise. Let's talk about Keenan Allen. And I'll get my graphic up here. And basically, Keenan Allen is like the model of consistency over the past few years, right? I mean, not to mention this guy is now the main beneficiary of arguably one of the best young quarterbacks in all of football, Justin Herbert or Herbert if you're feeling fancy. I mean, he hasn't had less than 136 targets in a season since 2017. He's averaged 100 catches per season over that same time span, but now it's a new coaching staff in town, right? And that actually bodes well for the passing game in LA. The new offensive coordinator is Joe Lombardi. He's now in town. What has he done in the NFL? Well, he spent the last 15 years of his NFL life on the offensive side of the football. Most recently, the last 5 years, in New Orleans as their quarterback coach. So he basically goes from coaching Hall of Famer Drew Brees to now getting the kid with a ton of potential in Justin Herbert. This was already an offense that ranked 5th in the NFL for pass attempts per game. And now we can see that maybe they could throw it a little bit more, not stuck behind an Anthony Lynn, a run-heavy type of offense where he's going to utilize multiple running backs in the backfield. We could see an offensive explosion once again in LA. Plus, they're going to have plenty of opportunities throughout their schedule to have to go out there and put up points. With that great schedule and plenty of opportunities going the way of Keenan Allen, he is primed for another great year. Right now, he's currently in the 3rd round as far as ADP goes. He is a solid wide receiver 1. So if you do decide to go running back in the first 2 rounds, I have no issues taking Keenan Allen in the 3rd and still having a solid group to start my wide receivers. What about this next guy? And I'm going to try to not be excited talking about Allen Robinson. I mean, this dude just eats targets like yearly, like every single year, consistently among the league leaders in targets every single year. In fact, every season in which he's played at least 15 games, he's had at least 150 targets. And the guy has done it with the likes of Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles. I mean, come on. He's putting up big numbers with not big talent at the quarterback position. Now, he starts off with Andy Dalton from what it sounds like. And honestly, that's an upgrade over basically everything he's played with to start his career. And then at some point, even if Justin Fields takes over, I actually like that a little bit more. The potential for Allen Robinson is still through the roof, and he's still playing for a big contract. There is no alpha number 2 in this offense, right? I mean, I do like me some Darnell Mooney. At some point this season, we are going full Mooney over here on the Headliners. But what about Cole Kmet? That's another future prospect there in that offense that I do like too, but they're not going to take away volume from Allen Robinson. It's really a weird situation if you think about it almost every year. There's no real reason why this guy gets slept on every single year in fantasy football. His situation, it's never good. It just isn't. He's always on bad teams. And yet, he just produces every single year. He's finished inside the top 12 wide receivers 3 of the 4 years in which he played in those 15 plus games. The other year finished inside the top 25, and he's currently being drafted the end of the 3rd, borderline 4th round at this point for sure. You lock up running backs early. I love me some Allen Robinson, and maybe you're at the turn right there on the turn pick, and you can go Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen back to back in the 3rd and the 4th after you got 2 running backs in the 1st and 2nd. Oh, mama! I would absolutely love that here in 2021. What about another young stud though, Terry McLaurin? And everybody loves Terry McLaurin, right? But yet, even though so many people love him, I still kind of feel like he's being underrated. In my opinion, this guy has had 227 targets, 145 receptions, 2,037 yards, and 11 touchdowns in the first 2 years of his career. Oh yeah, and he's done it with the likes of Dwayne Haskins, Case Keenum, Colt McCoy, Kyle Allen, and Alex Smith. Not exactly out there catching balls from future Hall of Famers, if you know what I mean, but nothing but respect for Alex Smith. Alex Smith, man, that's a man right there. I love me some Alex Smith, but let's be realistic. Back half of his career coming off that gruesome injury, it's not like Terry McLaurin benefited that much from it. But now is the time. Now is the time that Fitzmagic is released there in Washington here in 2021, and we know the gunslinger is there to throw the football, which is great. But what else happens when Fitzmagic throws the ball a lot? He's kind of prone to throwing some interceptions at times, right? Which, in my opinion, isn't necessarily a bad thing for Terry McLaurin. If Fitz is out there throwing some interceptions, possibly keeps their opponents a little bit closer in that game, could lead to more throwing throughout all 4 quarters. They're out there getting big leads. They're going to run in the second half. Man, that hurts McLaurin. We need these games to stay close so they continue to throw the football. Now, he showed in 2020 that he could be a real yak monster. If you don't know what yak is, it's yards after the catch. He had the 6th most in the NFL among all wide receivers with 468 yak yards. Now, there's really no other deep threat in this offense. Sure, Curtis Samuel is there. He'll run more of the underneath routes, kind of like we saw similar to him in Carolina with Ron Rivera there, but we do need to watch out for Diami Brown, their new draft pick there. That kid is a stud and could take some potential targets away. A lot of young talent there at the wide receiver position in Washington, but nobody's the alpha like Terry McLaurin is. He's currently going right now in the 4th round of a fantasy football draft. So maybe you miss out on an Allen Robinson and you can go Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin. I don't hate that whatsoever. Maybe you want to go robust RB. Maybe you find yourself going running back, running back, running back in the first 3 rounds. And then in the 4th round, sitting there, is potentially Terry McLaurin. I don't hate that either if that's the way the draft falls. Just something to pay attention to as you're on the clock and to look at who's coming up. I can see McLaurin with a ton of targets here in 2021. Next up, Bobby Trees, Robert Woods himself from the Los Angeles Rams. And it's plain and simple on this one, right? If you aren't down with Bobby Trees, I don't know if we can be friends. Because at this point, Bobby Trees is like a mainstay in my fantasy football lineups every single year. I love this guy. Year in and year out, I find him being on a lot of my fantasy football teams, and now I may love him more than ever. He gets a huge upgrade at the quarterback position with Matthew Stafford over Jared Goff. Anybody out there who doesn't think that Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback, even at this point of his career, than Jared Goff, I would love to hear that argument because I just don't see it. Woods, over the last 3 years, has averaged, this is an average, 135 targets and 90 receptions with Jared Goff. I mean, he had 129 targets last year, but only 97 of them were deemed catchable. That's wide receiver 69. Look what we got from Robert Woods, and heck, what happens if this guy gets more catchable targets? The ceiling is going to go way up. Now, he may never be one of those big, huge touchdown guys. That's really not his game. The big play is definitely there. He has the wheels to make it happen, but he's definitely somebody that can be a safe, a locked-in wide receiver 2 on a weekly basis, right? Had the touchdown numbers really increased, or we see an increase, then he creeps into that low-end wide receiver 1 because of this volume. Because the touchdowns haven't really been there, though, that's why he's more of a wide receiver 2. He hasn't finished lower than wide receiver 17 overall over the past 3 seasons, yet right now, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 20 in the 5th round. I don't understand that. The guy gets an upgrade and he's actually dropping right now, which is great for all of us fantasy football players. But another silver lining here with Robert Woods. He's kind of known for the occasional end around in the offense. He gets some rushing attempts, right? He scored on average 22 fantasy points a year just in rushing stats. Now you can say, it's not very many points. Jake, 22 points over the course of a year. I mean, come on. I mean, let's be realistic though. Have you ever lost a game, a super close matchup? Maybe you missed the playoffs by a couple points. Well, that Robert Woods end around would have sealed the deal for you and you would have won. I'm not discounting 22 rushing points, even though it's a wide receiver. I'll take any points I can possibly get in fantasy football, and that's just a little cherry on top and a little added bonus for the Robert Woods owners. But then you look at the division that he plays in: Arizona, Seattle, San Francisco, all games that are potential high-scoring games. All those teams can put up points. There's 6 games right there on his schedule that could be potential shootouts. Robert Woods could see huge volume in those games, and it will not surprise me once again if he sees 130 plus targets, which is great, because as of right now, the guy's going in like the 5th or 6th round. Yeah, sign me up for that all day long. Love me some Bobby Trees here once again. What about a guy who just continues to fall down the rankings, down draft boards? What about DJ Chark of the Jacksonville Jaguars? And for some reason, I find myself talking about DJ Chark a lot here this offseason. I mean, he's kind of suffered from the Allen Robinson syndrome, right? He just can't get any good, consistent quarterback play. I mean, he's had to try to produce with the likes of Gardner Minshew, who at times is the GOAT, Mike Glennon, Jake Luton, Nick Foles. I mean, come on, the guy has just gotten a raw deal, but now he gets future franchise quarterback Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I've loved DJ Chark since I saw him at the Combine. Named him Chark Week. A lot of people love it, and we've seen it at times, but now may be the best time for him to really have a solid opportunity for us to see his ceiling. His best year was 2019, but why? It was the deep balls, right? It was the big touchdowns. I even said at times throughout the 2019 season that he was a very touchdown-dependent wide receiver. If he didn't get that big play, he was somewhat of a liability that year. It's something that Jacksonville just can't produce consistently until now, right? The athleticism, the playmaking ability of Trevor Lawrence, he can extend plays. It can lead to more big chunk plays, right? When the pocket collapses and Trevor Lawrence scrambles and defensive coverages break down, DJ Chark's going to have an opportunity for some huge chunks of yards. Now, a lot of people want to say, hey, what about Marvin Jones? I love me some Marvin Jones late as well, but he's going to be more of that guy who's going to move the chains for you. He'll have the occasional touchdown. Marvin Jones always seems to have a nose for the end zone. I'm not taking anything away from him, but this is an offense that's going to have to throw the ball a lot. DJ Chark isn't going to be able to be double teamed, right? Because Marvin Jones is more than capable of taking away some of that defensive coverage. We've seen Urban Meyer produce huge college quarterback years with the likes of Tim Tebow. And look at everybody he ran through Ohio State. Now, they didn't turn out in the NFL, but he knows how to rack up points, rack up stats at the quarterback position. This defense, below average. The running game, what is it going to be with ETN or Carlos Hyde or James Robinson? What's it going to be? The offensive line isn't that great. They didn't bring in Trevor Lawrence to turn around and hand the ball off 30 times a game. They're going to be trailing, they're going to be throwing, and I expect the youth connection of DJ Chark and Trevor Lawrence to really be a thing here this year. In my opinion, 130 targets is not out of the question, and as of right now, DJ Chark's ADP is falling into the 6th round. That's huge upside at a point to where he may be your wide receiver 2, your wide receiver 3 at that point, and that is definitely a gamble that's worth taking, in my opinion, here in 2021. It's just lining up, right? We don't need all the guys on the best teams to score fantasy points. I don't care if the majority of your fantasy points are in garbage time. Score me my points, and I don't care what quarter they come in. The Jags could have to throw for all 4 quarters, and that is definitely something that I'm looking for, and DJ Chark could find himself a nice little statistical upgrade here in 2021. All right, so there's a few wide receivers that you can really focus on after you go running back early. I wanted to make sure that I gave these options because a lot of people hear me say, hey, running back early, want to get my running backs early. Well, if that's the case, what are we focusing on afterwards? Now, obviously, if some of the stud tight ends fall, they would fall into this category, like Darren Waller. He's definitely somebody who could see some huge targets once again here in 2021. But as far as wide receivers go, these guys are in line for huge target numbers, and they're definitely people that I have circled on my draft list. So when I become on the clock, I have some options to look for to get that opportunity to score some points at the wide receiver position. But I want to know what you think down below. Who are a few other names that you could add to this list? There's actually quite a few. Didn't want to put all of them into one video, but there are a few guys out there that really have this high potential. Who do you have on your draft boards? Who do you have on your draft list? Leave it down below in the comment section. I would love to communicate back and forth with you. We've been super interactive here this offseason, and we're going to continue to do it for as long as we possibly can. But we appreciate that support. Do me a favor, hit the like button, consider subscribing if you're looking for all things fantasy football. We got you covered here all throughout the offseason and all through the regular season. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.